Each and every one of us will go through a season of invisibility in different areas of our lives. So what I mean, there will be a time you will have a season of being in the background. It might be in your job. That you have a season of being in the background. That it's not your time, it's not your turn to be in the front. You might be a musician. And you know you got the talents and the gifts and the skills to be in the front, but it might be your season to sing backup. Your season of invisibility, where nobody really knows you. You might be a songwriter, and you're writing music for artists, and everybody jamming to the artists that are singing your songs, and you're invisible, but it just might be your season of invisibility. What up, everybody? It's your boy JK. Today is Thursday, so you already know what it is. It's Tackle Thursday with JK, live on IG, and I'm recording from my YouTube channel, which you could go subscribe to at Jeremy Kellem, and I'm recording from a podcast, which you can catch the audio on my podcast on Anchor, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, man. Those three platforms, definitely you can catch the Tackle Thursday with JK podcast. What we tackling today is value over visibility. Value over visibility, man. So this podcast, like I say, is a self-help podcast for those young adults out there that are in the midst of establishing foundations for themselves, right? And we tackle different topics, different challenges or topics or ideas or things that young adults experience or face. And so today we tackling the topic, like I say, value over visibility. We live in a world, man, where, you know, it's kind of like we live in a world where social media definitely is prevalent, right? And it's kind of like the more followers you have, the more significant you appear to be, right? Like, hey, they got 1 million followers, 2 million followers. Oh, they must be important, or they must be valuable, right? Or you know, we acknowledge those that are out front or people who are seen more. We think, or people that are out in the front, we believe that, hey, they're the more valuable people, or they're the one that's the most successful because they're out in the front. They're in the front, right? And so to a certain extent, that is true, or to a certain extent, that can be true, right? Oh, I'm out in the front, or people with the most exposure, or people that's out in the front make the most money. There are cases, there are situations where that is the case, right? But that is not in every case. And so I believe, especially as a millennial or Gen X, right, as young adults, I think that we can get caught up with this idea of, I gotta be seen, I gotta be in the front, right? And so when I'm talking about value over visibility, I'm not saying that there's no value in visibility, right? Because being visible, being out in the front, being seen by people, there's value in that. It's importance in that. If I got a business, if I got a brand, and I want this my business to be seen, then I got to create some stuff. I got to create marketing ideas and strategies that will get me out in the front, or that will, you know, bring me exposure. So there is value in visibility, but that visibility doesn't come before value. Visibility is not more important, in my opinion, than value, right? And so the first point that I want to address is that I believe as we live in this world, man, as young adults in this world, and people in this world in general, especially in this social media and climate and environment, I'm a proponent of social media. I use it. You know, my wife uses it. My wife, that's her job. You know what I'm saying? One of her jobs, right? To be a social media influencer and a blogger. So I'm a proponent. I'm an advocate of social media. But I believe also if we're not careful in this environment, right, that we could become motivated by exposure, right? that we could get to a point where we become motivated by exposure. In other words, that we're like, hey, I'm doing this to go viral, right? So some people are creating content and they're motivated to go viral, right? They're like, oh, I'm doing this to go viral, right? But then what if you don't go viral? Or you're into music and you're putting your song out because you want to get 1 million streams. And what if your song doesn't get 1 million streams? What if it doesn't get the exposure that you want, right? And so what happens when we're motivated by exposure, or we're motivated by, wanting to be in the front or wanting to be seen, then when we don't get what it is that we want, when we don't receive, or if we don't get or receive the exposure that we want, then it could cause us to maybe quit on our goal or quit on a dream of ours because, hey, I created this podcast and I thought I was going to be getting more listeners. And because I'm not getting more listeners, because I'm not getting exposure that I desire, then I'm going to give up on the podcast. Right. And I was listening to Wallow, man. Wallow from $1 Million Worth of Game, man. He was talking about it. He was talking about how many people, right? Many people miss out on their blessings, or they lose out on blessings, or they ruin their opportunities because they want to be in the front. And they're frustrated with being in the background. And Wallow was talking about, he was like, man, it's so many people that are in the background, maybe of their business, or in the background of their job, or in the background of a team, or in the background of an organization that are doing so much better, making much more money, are more successful than those who are in the front in other places. So in other words, he was saying, Wallow was like, man, like we get so caught up on trying to be seen or trying to be in the front, or in other words, we get so caught up in being motivated by exposure that even if we in a great situation, we'll leave it because we're not in the front. We'll leave it because, man, it's not getting the exposure that I thought that I wanted it to get. It's not getting the exposure. Right? So we got to be aware of ensuring and making sure that we are not motivated by exposure. Exposure is great. I want more exposure for my podcast. I want more exposure for my speaking business. I want more exposure for WeIn. And so exposure is great, but I should not be motivated by exposure. Like I shouldn't only record my podcast because I'm looking to go viral. Like, no, you're not going to go viral every single day. You might record 100 episodes, and out of those 100, one may go viral. But if I'm motivated by exposure, if I'm motivated by the simple fact to go viral, then I'm going to end up quitting because not everything I do will go viral. So we got to be aware of not being motivated by exposure. And so when we don't realize, or when we are motivated by exposure, it creates a pain point in our lives. It creates pain in our lives because we're motivated by something that won't always be there. We're motivated by something that could be fleeting. You could go viral today and nobody watch tomorrow. You can go viral. You could go viral. You could be going viral for a whole year and then fall off the map the next 2 years. So your motivation should not be based off of exposure, right? And so what I believe can give us relief when we talk about the pain, the idea of being motivated by exposure, what I think we could get relief from is understanding that each and every one of us will go through a season of invisibility in different areas of our lives. I'm going to say it again, right? That each one of us will go through a season of invisibility in an area of our life, right? So what I mean, there will be a time you will have a season of being in the background. It might be in your job. that you have a season of being in the background. That it's not your time, it's not your turn to be in the front. You might be a musician, and you know you got the talents and the gifts and the skills to be in the front, but it might be your season to sing backup. Your season of invisibility, where nobody really knows you. You might be a songwriter, and you're writing music for artists, and everybody jamming to the artists that are singing your songs, and you're invisible, but it just might be your season of invisibility. Let's take a quick break from the show. I got a quick question for you. Are you looking for a new book to add to your book collection? Are you looking for a new good read? And if your answer is yes, then I encourage you to go get you the copy of this book written by Sandra F. Hope, Goodbye Fear. If we all are honest, we have experienced fear, faced fear, had to overcome fear, or maybe even be dealing with fear right now in some area of our lives. Well, the author Sandra F. Hope does a great job of identifying practical strategies, practical ways that you can utilize to identify the root of your fear, but not only identify the root of your fear, but how to silence the fear, how to overcome your fear and live a life filled with faith and confidence. So you can go get you a copy of Goodbye Fear at sandrafholt.com. SandraFholt.com. I promise you, you will not be disappointed when you read this book written by author Sandra F. Holt, Goodbye Fear. Now let's back to the episode. We go. And so everybody goes through seasons of invisibility. I remember me, man, back in high school, right? I remember sitting in high school and me and some of my friends, man, we used to Google ourselves. You know, I know it sounds kind of conceited, you know, but we used to Google ourselves, right? And when I used to Google myself in high school, nothing came up. I'm like, dang, like that hurt me. I'm like, dang, nothing don't come up. I type in Jeremy Kellem, nothing come up, right? I was going through a season of invisibility. I was going through a season where nobody really knew my name. Even when I went into my senior year, I wasn't preseason. I didn't make Super 11. I wasn't preseason all county. None of that. I was invisible to the masses, right? And so I had to be content and still be confident in myself, in my ability, even in the season of invisibility, even in the season where I was in the background, I still had to understand that I had value. And I had to know what my value is, right? Because the topic we're tackling today is visibility, is value over visibility. So even though hey, you gotta spell my last name. Hey, they be jacking my last name too, boy. They be putting that U in there, dog, instead of that E. But I had to be content and understand that, okay, this is my season of invisibility. Did I think of it back then like that? No, but I'm telling you, I went through a season of invisibility. And so going into my senior year, even after the first game we played Chaminade Madonna in a kickoff classic, I remember reading an article and it was like, oh man, this senior safety, Jeremy Kellem, I went from being invisible to some to now I was starting to be noticed. And then a few months later, 6, 7 months later, I'm in college. And after a couple games in college, guess what I did? Went back to Google, put Jeremy Kellem in with an E, Amos. And guess what? Oh, articles start popping up. So I'm here to tell you that even though just because you sit in a season of invisibility where you think nobody knows your podcast, you're not getting a lot of listeners on your podcast, or you're not getting a lot of streams on your music, or you're not getting the support that you feel like you deserve, even when you sit in this season of invisibility, in due time, I'm going to say it again, in due time, God will bless you to transition from invisibility, from that season of invisibility, to more and more people knowing you. But that can't be your motivation of why you do it, right? We can't be motivated by exposure. But after enduring seasons of invisibility, eventually God will elevate you and take you to a level where, hey, more people know you. Like one of the top motivational speakers right now, Gary Vee. I was listening to him on the Pivot podcast, and he said that, hey, he went most of his life into his late 30s without being known. He went through seasons. He went through years of invisibility. Now, I can't tell you how long your season going to be of invisibility, but it's time. Think about people that just seem like they come out of nowhere. Right? Now, their friends knew what they was doing. Their family knew what they were doing, but the masses didn't. So we got to understand that just because you may be invisible doesn't mean that you don't have any value. Just because a lot of people may not know that I got a podcast or may not listen to my podcast does not mean that my podcast isn't good. It's just, this is my season of invisibility, maybe, to a certain extent, right? And so we shouldn't be motivated by exposure, right? Because if we're motivated by exposure, that can cause pain when we don't get the exposure that we want in our lives. But to relieve ourselves of that pain, if we are motivated by exposure, is that we must see and realize and understand that, hey, we all go through seasons of invisibility and being invisible, right? And then we must understand that when we're in the midst of our season of invisibility, we must understand that there is value in the unseen. I'm going to say it again. There is value in the unseen. Does everybody got that? There is value in the unseen. So in other words, what may not be seen right now, there's value in that. And I got this, right, because I did this for my segment on 760 AM, right? Radio. I do a segment called Impact with JK every Wednesday on 760 AM, right? With my boy Q Joseph, man, choir boy. So check out that, man. I put the link in my live on my story on Wednesdays or on my Facebook page, Jeremy Kellem. I always, post the link that you can listen to it live on the radio wherever you are in the country, right? But there's a scripture, right? If you know what I'm saying. So I'm a believer in Christ, right? I'm a Christian. So in the Bible, in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 21 through 22, it says, and this is, right, Paul talking to the Corinthians about the human body, right? And about how the body is a team, that everybody plays a role, right? And so it says, the eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Right? And the part that stood out was those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. So, in other words, right, in what that verse is saying, that many times as humans, right, when we look at our own bodies, our fleshly bodies, when we look at our bodies, we focus more on the outside. We focus more on our arms, our legs, our fingers, right? And though they are important, though the body parts that are visible, they're important, but they're not more important than the body parts that are invisible or that cannot be seen unless you go inside. So for instance, my legs are important, but my legs are not as important or more valuable than my heart. And so many times as people, we place more value on the outside of our bodies, what is visible, than we do on the invisible. So we want to make sure we looking good on the outside, and you should. You want to be the best, you know, the healthiest, look the best. But we're not doing no hard work. We're not trying to have, you know, a lot of times we don't work on being a better person. We don't work on having good character. We don't work on having a good heart. But even though our heart, our liver, right, our lungs are invisible, but you can't live without them. Right? For the most part, you need them. They're really more important. The invisible parts of our bodies are more important than the visible. So when I say that there's value over visibility, I'm saying that, hey, you may be in the background right now. You may be the heart of an organization. That when somebody comes in contact with your organization, they might not ever see you. They might not ever talk to you. And they might only know the CEO. They may only know the big names of the organization. But you really the heart. You really make things go. But you might be frustrated because you're like, man, I want to be seen more. I want more exposure. I'm not valuable. And I'm telling you that just because you're invisible at this point in your life, or just because you're invisible on that job, or just because you don't have a lot of exposure in this area or that area, does not mean you don't have value, because you do. You do. Right? You do. And I'm going to say this quick example, man. When I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, right, I was, when I left, I was second in command, right? I was a program director. And so there was one person that was over me at that location, right? So you had the unit director, number one. You had the program director, number two. You had the social rec director. You had the team director, right? So it's like those five, it went that pecking order, right? So most people, they knew who we were. We go to meetings, right? We go to meetings. We the directors. Hey, somebody come in. Hey, we want to talk to the directors. Oh, they talk to us. But we weren't the heart. We weren't the heart of that location. It was the lady at the front desk. And I would say this. I was like, hey, you are the heart of this organization. Without you, this location wouldn't run. Even though she was invisible, when you think about the grand scheme of things, even though she might not have been a director, and she might then sit on the big meetings, she was invisible, but she was the most important. She made everything go. So we got to get out of this idea of thinking that, hey, if my content doesn't go viral, then it's bad. Or if my songs aren't streamed by a lot of people, then it means my songs are bad. Or if a lot of people don't share or talk about what I do, I must not be good. Or if my business, if I don't get a lot of sales, I must not have a good product. No, you just may be going through your season of invisibility. Like, even right now, as the finals about the game about to start, when we think about Steph Curry, everybody knows who Steph Curry is right now. Everybody seen Steph Curry really change the game of basketball with the three-point shot. But Steph Curry, everybody didn't always know who Steph Curry was in this magnitude. Steph Curry wasn't highly recruited. So it wasn't like, oh, this is this 5-star coming out of high school, or at the age of 7, we knew he was a phenom. No. Steph Curry went through seasons of invisibility. Steph Curry got to high school and had to change his shot. Steph Curry wasn't the number one. He wasn't the number one pick. Right? Steph Curry got to the NBA and was having ankle issues after ankle issues after ankle issues. So Steph Curry went through seasons, years, right? Literal seasons, right? Basketball, but figurative seasons. Steph Curry went through time frame where he was invisible to the masses, meaning that he wasn't getting exposure like he is now. He didn't have his own shoe. He wasn't considered the best shooter of all time. Steph Curry went through those seasons. He went through those times. But the great thing about Steph Curry is that Steph Curry didn't allow the seasons of invisibility that he went through, or the tough times, or the times when he didn't make the All-Star game, or the times when he wasn't looked at as a top 5 NBA player and he was kind of invisible to the masses. He didn't let that determine his value. And so now, after going through seasons of invisibility, now we see who Steph Curry is, and he has ascended. And they talk about maybe he's on the Mount Rushmore. He's in the top 10 of all time. Now, but he went through seasons of invisibility, but it did not change his value. He went through seasons where he was in the background, where he wasn't the main guy, but it never changed his value. And so I want to encourage you all and let you all know, man, you might be going through a season. You might be in your background season. You might be in your season where nobody really know about your business. Nobody really know about your company. Nobody really supports your content. And if that is you, I tell you to keep going. Because though there's value in visibility, visibility is not more important than value. So even if nobody knows who you are and what you do, hold on to your value. Continue to put out great work, because in due time, you will transition from being invisible to the masses, or you would transition from being invisible to the masses to being known by more, to being known by many, to where your exposure will increase, right? So man, that's what I tackle today, man. The topic is value over visibility. Understanding that we should not be motivated by exposure, because when we motivated by exposure, when the time comes that we don't get the exposure that we want, then we'll quit on the dream. We'll give up because we like, this didn't go viral. I didn't get support like I wanted to. I thought I was going to win this award, so I'm going to give up. So we got to make sure we're not motivated by exposure, right? And then when we realize that, we got to understand that, hey, in life I will go through a season or maybe seasons of invisibility where not many people know me. But being invisible doesn't mean I have no value. That there's value in the unseen. And so when we understand that there's value in the unseen, then we can hold on, and we can be content, and we can see the purpose of our seasons of being in the background. Last thing, you look at Destiny's Child. We know Beyonce was in the front, right? Beyonce, lead singer, she doing her thing. But let's just talk about Kelly Rowland and Michelle. They were more so in the background, right? They went through their season of invisibility, right? I'm pretty sure they knew they had the gifts. They knew they had the talents to lead and be a lead singer, a lead performer, or go on to acting and do different things. They probably knew that. But they handled their season of invisibility with grace. We knew who they were, but they weren't more popular than Beyonce. But since they broke up, Kelly has had a successful individual career, singing, acting. Michelle has had a successful individual career, singing, acting. So there are times when we go through our season of invisibility, but it doesn't mean you have no value. That there's actually, even though you may be invisible, you may not be known to the world, yet you still have value. And this is what I tell people. I say that people, we think that, I just need another platform. Like, we think the platform makes us great. The platform doesn't make us great. All a greater platform does, all a bigger platform does, all a larger audience does, right, is allow more people to find out and see the greatness that was already in us. So what I'm telling you right now, you sitting on your job, you might be in the background, you might be in a singing group, you might be singing backup, you might be a songwriter, but you want to be a performer. I'm telling you right now that you got greatness in you where you sit at. And and your platform doesn't determine your greatness. Your platform would just elevate you and allow more people to see the greatness that's already in you. So if you think you need exposure to be great, you're sadly mistaken. The greatness is already in you. It's just when you get that bigger platform, more people gonna find out how great you already have been and already was and always was, right? So man, that's how I'm gonna end, man, the show today, man. Tackle Thursday with JK podcast. Every Thursday, I go live on IG. If you missed the live or check out the other content, other episodes I got, man, you go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to that. Jeremy Kellem is the YouTube channel. Or you can go listen to the podcast, just audio version, on podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, man. Hey, so I appreciate y'all getting on. Y'all go enjoy these this game 6, man. Hopefully these dubs pull out this win tonight, man. And hey, continue to wake up, striving to win on purpose, be intentional about winning, and y'all have a blessed day.